You have no right to speak for the living, deathworlder. The words cracked across the council amphitheater like a whip. High Arbiter Kren did not shout. He did not need to. His voice carried through the translation field and settled over 300 assembled delegates in a perfect, cold layer. On the lower floor, alone in the circle reserved for petitioners, the human stood with his hands clasped behind his back. He was not armored. He was not tall by the standards of most species present. He wore the plain grey of Earth's diplomatic corps, a color that had been chosen specifically because it did not provoke anyone. Your kind was born in filth that tries to kill you with every breath, Kren went on. You ate poison to live. You drank acid. You fought your own brothers in the mud of that graveyard you call a cradle. You have no standing to tell this council that the quarantine of Ephi must be broken. The Lyrren will die as nature intends. Your sentiment is a malfunction of your origin. The human, Ambassador Elian Ward, was 52 years old. He had a daughter on Luna and a wife buried under an oak tree in New Canterbury. He had spent 20 years as an ecologist before he ever put on a diplomatic coat. He listened to the insult the way a man listens to rain on a roof he has already fixed. Then he said, very quietly, "Then let us go down and die with them." The chamber stilled. Translation lights flickered as the system tried to pass intent. Shalvara, archival adjunct, third tier, felt her outer eyes whiten involuntarily. She was Maniri, young, her hide still pale. She had been assigned to observe the human delegation because her superiors thought her expendable if the Deathworlders became violent. Humans had never become violent in council. That was the first thing no one understood. For 12 years, since Earth had been granted probationary contact, humans had done nothing that fit the Deathworld file. The file said a Category 12 Deathworld produced hyper-aggressive, hyper-competitive, toxin-resistant, radiation-tolerant predators with redundant biology and minimal empathy. Humans were soft. They bruised. They needed low gravity and narrow temperature bands. They died if they breathed the wrong air for an hour. They brought physicians to border disputes. They built rescue stations on shipping lanes and left them uncrewed so any species could use them. They sent food to colonies that had insulted them. The council had decided this was a trick. The Deathworlder was hiding its teeth. Elian Ward stood in the center of the insult and offered to die. High Arbiter Kren leaned forward. His species, the Tassari, were tall and crested. Their ancestors were plains hunters who had learned to kill by exhausting prey. You would contaminate a clean extinction with your presence? No, Elian said. We would not contaminate it. We would share it. Kren made a gesture, and the petition was sealed. Quarantine on Ephi would remain. No vassals in or out until the photosynthetic blight called the pallid bloom burned itself out. The Lyrren, a gentle species of low, singing forest dwellers on the moon Ephi, had not achieved spaceflight. Their entire population was 400,000 souls. Their moon was their only home. The bloom had arrived on a meteoroid and was eating the light from their canopy, turning leaves to glass. They would starve in months. The Council's doctrine was triage. Some worlds were too expensive to save. Earth's petition to attempt remediation was denied, on grounds of biological risk, on grounds that Deathworlders could not be trusted with custodianship of life. Elian bowed his head, not in submission, but in acknowledgement, and left the circle. His footsteps were the only sound. Shao followed him. She was not supposed to leave her alcove, but her legs moved before her mind gave permission. She caught him in the outer corridor, where the air was cooler and the light was less ceremonial. "Why did you not correct him?" she said, her translator making her voice small. Elian looked at her. He had learned to read Minnirai eye color. White meant distress or confusion. Hers were white all over. "Correct what?" he asked. He called your world a graveyard. He called you filthborn. You are an ambassador. You should have invoked Protocol 7. You should have demanded censure. Your world is Category 12. Everyone knows this. You could have made him retract. Elian smiled, and it was a tired smile. No, he said, I could not have. Because it is true? Shal said, then instantly regretted it. I did not mean, I meant the classification is true, not the insult. I know what you meant, Elian said. Then why let them use it as a weapon? Elian did not answer immediately. He reached into the pocket of his grey coat and took out a small wooden bead, polished by handling. He rolled it between his fingers. Come with me, he said. I want to show you something before we leave. The human habitat ring was capped at 1 gravity and 21% oxygen, which Shao could tolerate for short periods with a filter. Humans lived in quarters that other species found strangely open, full of growing things that served no filtration purpose. They called them plants. Elian's office was not large. One wall was covered in paper. Real paper, not display. On it were drawings made by children. Some were human children, some were not. A Tassar chick had drawn a human hand holding a much smaller claw. A Lyrren child, from before the blight, had drawn a song as a spiral of color. Another wall held photographs. Not of mountains or oceans at first, though there were those. The first photograph closest to the door showed a field of mud, nothing else. Just cracked, grey mud with a few dead stalks. The second showed the same field, but with people in it. Old people, young people, in cheap work clothes, planting. The third showed that field again, 20 years later. It was a forest of young pine, and a small girl stood in the middle of it, with her arms wide. Shal did not understand. You think Earth is a death world, Elian said, not as a question. All records say so, Shal said. High gravity, extreme weather, predatory megafauna, microbial density, seismic instability. Your ancestors survived it. That is why you are so resilient. Elian touched the first photograph, the mud. This is Earth, he said. Or a piece of it. Northern China, about 240 years ago. My great-grandmother was born not far from here. When she was a child, this was not a field, it was a dust bowl. The topsoil had blown away, nothing grew. Charles' secondary eyes blinked. A natural disaster? No. We did it, Elian said. We cut the trees, we overfarmed, we burned coal until the sky changed color. We made a bomb that could erase cities, and then we almost used enough of them to erase everything. In my species' old reckoning, the year 2050, Earth had lost 60% of its wild animals. The reefs were dying. The air in summer could kill you if you were old. He said it plainly, without drama, the way one might recite a supply list. Shao felt cooled. Death worlds were supposed to be worlds that tried to kill their inhabitants, not the other way around. So you are not from a death world at all, she whispered. You are from a garden that you ruined. We are from a garden that we almost ruined, Elian corrected. And then we spent 150 years trying to fix. That picture in the middle, those people are my family. They were not soldiers. They were teachers and farmers. The last picture is my daughter. That forest is why she can breathe without a filter when she visits. He led her to a table where a sealed terrarium sat. Inside it was soil, dark and rich, threaded with white filaments. Do you know what this is? He asked. Soil? Not just soil. It is a network. Fungi that connect trees together. They share nutrients, They warn each other of insects. They keep score. A tree that is sick will be fed by its neighbors, even if it is a different species. We did not invent this. We almost destroyed it before we noticed it was there. Charles stared at the white threads. She had been taught that death worlds produced competition. This was cooperation, so deep it looked like one organism. When the Council surveyors first came to Earth, they saw a Category 12 death world. Lyrren said, because that is what their translation program told them to see. But the original survey was not done by the Council. It was done by the precursors, long before any of us. The Council copied their tags without understanding them. Charles' training was in archives. Her heart, which had 2 chambers, beat faster. The deep archive was cold and dim, full of light that hurt human eyes, but was comfortable for Mineri. Charles' clearance was low, but Alien's diplomatic token opened doors that should have stayed closed. He was not supposed to use it for personal research. He used it anyway. The record for Sol 3 was there, layered like sediment. First entry, approximately 3,200 years old. Precursor glyphs, SOL3, garden, class B, low threat, high biodiversity, recommended for seeding. Second entry, 2,100 years later, automated drone update, biosphere in collapse, anthropogenic event, carbon spike, methane spike, extinction rate, accelerated, rapid accelerated. Third entry, 400 years old, Council scout, short and dismissive, indigenous population still present, planet shows extreme degradation. Tag, DWO, Death World, avoid contact until stabilization or extinction. Fourth entry, 60 years old, Council science vessel, anomalous recovery for reforestation detected, ocean Phi stabilizing, atmospheric carbon declining against model, native population engaged in large-scale remediation. Tag retained, DWS. Charles translated the glyph DW through 3 layers of linguistic drift. The Council's standard lexicon rendered it as Death World. The precursor root was different. She pulled the etymology. De when. She whispered the sounds. The translator struggled. Da meant that which is passed through. Meant ending or death, but not as a weapon, as a state. When meant world, but also home or holder. Da or when. A world that has passed through death. Not a world that deals death, a world that died. Charles' outer eyes went completely white, then clear. You let them think you are predators, she said, her voice shaking the filter. You let them think you are savages who crawled out of a hell that tried to murder you. You could have corrected the record on the first day. Yes, Ian said. Why? Elian looked at the layered entries, at the mud and the forest. Because we were ashamed, he said simply. And because we were afraid that if you knew the truth, you would trust us even less. What kind of species almost kills its own mother? And then, when we came to the Council, we heard how you spoke about death worlds. How you said death worlders cannot be trusted with life, only with survival. We thought if you knew we had killed our own world and brought it back, you would say, see, they cannot even keep their own garden alive without destroying it first. He turned off the display. So we said nothing. We let you call Earth an insult. It felt honest. Earth is not an insult because it tried to kill us. It is an insult to call it a death world and mean it is a slur. To us, it is a reminder. Shao thought of the terrarium, of the fungi sharing food with the sick tree. The emergency klaxon that rang through the station was not loud, but it changed the air. Ephi's quarantine drones had moved to active interdiction. A Lyrren distress song, broadcast on a frequency that took hours to cross the distance, had been intercepted by a human listening post. The bloom had mutated. It was no longer just eating light. It was now producing spores that clogged lungs. The Lyrren were choking. Cran's office issued a statement within the hour. The quarantine would be absolute. Any vessel breaking it would be fired upon, and its planet of origin would be declared in breach of Council law. Earth, already probationary, would be expelled and its trade lanes closed. Lyrren read the statement in his office with the children's drawings behind him. His daughter's forest looked very green. He called his team. There were 8 of them on the station. Not soldiers. 2 soil ecologists, 1 mycologist, 1 atmospheric chemist, 1 doctor, 2 engineers who specialized in water, and 1 pilot who used to fly crop dusters over the Sahel. He told them what he intended to do. The mycologist, a woman named Anya who was 70 and had arthritis in both hands, said, "About time." The doctor asked about the spore risk. The pilot asked how many seed pods they could carry. None of them asked whether it was allowed. Shell found Lyrren in the docking bay while the small, unarmed Earthship, the Vandana, was being loaded. It was not a warship. It had no weapons at all. Its holds were full of soil, of cultures, of filtered water, of air scrubbers that humans had used to clean their own sky. "You will be shot," Shell said. "Maybe not," Lyrren said. "You will be expelled. Earth will lose everything it has worked for." "Maybe," Lyrren said. "But we have been expelled before. From Eden, from grace, from our own good sense. We learned how to come back." Shell made a decision that would end her career as an archivist. She pressed her personal seal, which contained her genetic signature and her family line, to Lyrren's datapad and transferred the precursor records, with her own translation and annotation. "Broadcast it," she told him, "on open channel. Let them hear you in your own words, not Kren's." The Vandana left the station without clearance. Alarms sounded, but for 6 crucial minutes, the human station's traffic controller, a man from Nairobi who had once replanted mangroves with his father, pretended his console had frozen. The Council fleet over Ephi was 3 destroyers, elegant and powerful, crewed by species that had never known war on their own soil. Their orders were clear. The Vandana dropped out of transit on the edge of the quarantine sphere and broadcast on all frequencies. Not a challenge, not a threat. It was Lyrren's voice, calm, with the precursor files attached, with Shell's translation, with photographs of mud and forest. "This is Ambassador Lyrren Ward at Earth. We are breaking quarantine. We are unarmed. We are carrying soil and medicine. We are not coming as deathworlders. We are coming as what we are. Our world died. We killed it. We watched the reefs bleach and the forests burn and the sky turn brown. We watched our children cough. And we did not leave. We stayed. Replanted. We cleaned. We learned how to take carbon from the sky and put it back in the ground. We learned how to make fungi that talk to trees. We learned how to bring back a wolf from a tooth in a drawer. It took 150 years, and it is not finished. It will never be finished. You call Earth a death world as an insult. You think it means a world that breeds killers. It does not. In the old language, it means a world that has passed through death. A revenant world. That is what we are. If you want to fire on us for that, fire. But we are going down. There are people choking under a white sky, and we know how to clean a white sky. We know, because we had to learn. For a long moment, life is not down, and the destroyers held position. The destroyers held position. Then Kren's voice came on the command channel, sharp and furious. Destroyers, enforce the quarantine. This is contamination by a probationary deathworlder culture. Fire to disable. The first destroyer powered its main array. Shao, who had taken a shuttle and was now clinging to the Vandana's hull in a borrowed suit that did not fit, closed all four eyes. The second destroyer did not power its weapons. Its captain, a Lyrren, whose own homeworld had lost 90% of its ocean to industrial extraction before being abandoned by the Council a century earlier, sent a tight beam to the first. We have received a new translation of precursor tag. Request verification of order. Our doctrine does not permit firing on unarmed remediation vessels engaged in preservation of sentient life. The third destroyer, crewed by young Kelvani, who had grown up on stories of Earth doctors who had saved their moon from plague without asking for payment, simply moved aside. Kren screamed for obedience, but the Council was not an empire. It was a committee. Committees hesitate when someone shows them proof that their insult was built on a mistranslation and their law was built on shame. The Vandana entered the atmosphere. Ephi was beautiful even while dying. The forests that the Lyrren lived in were not forests as humans knew them. They were colonies of singing, translucent leaves that chimed when the wind passed. Now many were coated in a pale film that drank light and gave back nothing. The Lyrren themselves were small, with hollow bones and wide throats for singing. They were gathered in a clearing around their elders, singing a low song that was not music, but memory, a song they sang when a forest died. Lyrren knelt in the film. He did not wear a helmet. Anya had told him the spores would irritate human lungs, but would not kill him quickly if he took the prophylactic. He breathed the air of another dying world, and it smelled, impossibly, like Earth had smelled in the photographs, like dust and grief. He opened the first pod. Inside was not a weapon. Inside was earth, black soil from Boreal, full of life. White mycorrhizae from New Canterbury, bacteria that ate glassy cellulose and turned it into sugar. Seeds that grew fast and died fast and left nitrogen behind. Humans do not fight blights by burning them. Burning was how they had almost killed their own world. They fight blights by outgrowing them, by starving them, by reminding the forest how to talk to itself. Anya and the others worked without speaking, the way people work who have done this before on other continents, on other wounds. The doctor set up air filters made from woven hemp and electrostatic charge, technology so simple the Lyrren could build more after the humans left. The Lyrren stopped singing their death song and watched. One small Lyrren, a child whose throat was caked with pale dust, approached Lyrren. It touched his hand with a limb as thin as a reed. Lyrren, who had not cried when Kren insulted his planet, who had not cried when his wife died, felt tears cut through the dust on his face. Shao translated, her voice broken by the suit radio. It asks why you came when the skyship said to let them go. Lyrren picked up a handful of earth soil and a handful of Ephi soil, both dying, both alive, and mixed them together. Tell him, he said to Shao, that we know what it is to be left to die by people who say it is too expensive to save you. Tell him we did that to ourselves once. Tell him we are still sorry. Tell him we are staying. For 3 days and nights the Council destroyers watched from orbit, while 8 unarmed humans and 1 Minari archivist, who had thrown away her career, planted a planet's funeral with new life. On the second day, 2 more ships arrived. One was Lyrren, carrying water. One was Kelvani, carrying doctors. They had not been ordered. They had seen the broadcast. On the third day, the pallid bloom, which had been an unstoppable photosynthetic predator for weeks, began to recede. Not because it was killed, but because the earth fungi linked the Lyrren trees together, and the trees began to share sugar again, and the bloom, which fed on isolated, lice-starved leaves, found no more easy food. It starved the way loneliness starves. High Arbiter Kren resigned before a censure vote could be called. He did not do so out of nobility. He did so because no one would answer his calls. The council convened a week later, not in the amphitheater, but in a smaller room, and reclassified Earth. The new tag was not garden. Earth had not earned that back in their eyes yet, and humans would not have wanted it. The new tag was revenant. First of its kind. Definition: a world that has passed through death by the hand of its own children and has been returned to life by those same hands. Protected status. Custodial mandate. Shalvara was stripped of her archival rank and then immediately rehired as liaison to the Revenant World's office, because the council realized, belatedly, that someone who would throw away her career to translate a dead language correctly was exactly who they needed. She went to Earth once, after Ephi's sky cleared. Ilian took her to New Canterbury, to the forest that had been mud. His daughter was there, now taller. The forest was loud with insects, which Charles found horrifying, and then, strangely, beautiful. "Do you still let them call you deathworlders?" Charles asked, watching the girl climb an oak that had not existed when Ilian was born. Ilian smiled and rolled the wooden bead between his fingers. It was from that oak. "No," he said, "but we do not correct them with words anymore." In the clearing, a group of human children and a group of Lyrren children, who had been brought to Earth to learn how to tend a recovering forest, were planting seedlings together. They sang while they worked, two songs at once that did not match and somehow did. Far above, the council's new charts were being updated. On them, Earth was still marked with a warning color, but the note beside it had changed. They had called Earth a death world to make us afraid of it, and we let them, because we were still learning how to ask it for forgiveness.